Good evening. The State Emergency Service is expecting more wild weather soon, and ETSA says it can't guarantee thousands won't be left without power again. ETSA insists crews did their best at the weekend, but the energy watchdog will be investigating.
Winds gusting up to 120 kilometres an hour brought down trees and power lines right across the state on Saturday morning. At ETSA's Victorian Base call centre, a new record was set.
We would normally have about 1,200 calls a day on average, and on Saturday we had 34,600 calls.
More than 130,000 people lost power. ETSA says 98% had it back by Saturday night, but for Edwin Lewis at South Plympton it took 37 hours.
If it can go down like that just because the wind blows, imagine what could happen if we got hit with some really severe storms.
Edwin's blaming old equipment, but ETSA says that's not the case. ESCOSA, the Essential Services Commission of South Australia, has issued a please explain. It wants to ensure ETSA did all it could to minimise the chaos. 400 crews, including local and Victorian-based contractors, worked 16-hour shifts to get the power restored. ETSA says employing any more would be overkill.
The community as a whole wouldn't be wanting to pay for an extreme level of crews who would sit around and do not much in between storms.
And with more rough weather possible, there are no guarantees.
If we have a similar storm come through again, then we will certainly put our best foot forward and address that, but there will be a wait time for some people if it is of the same level of significance.
Jessica Adamson, 7 News.
So Mel, when's this next lot of wild weather going to hit?
Well, Jane, the Bureau is considering another severe weather warning for tomorrow. It's all coming from the west, where in Perth residents have been cleaning up after wind gusts of up to 100 kilometres an hour. Trees were blown over and homes damaged. One apartment building had to be evacuated after losing its roof. Now, the Bureau says there could be gusts up to 90 kilometres an hour here tomorrow, but I'll have all the details for you a little later. John.
Thanks, Mel. We'll see you then. A former federal MP has been accused of throwing his weight around in a bid to get assault charges against his son dropped. Kim Richardson's gone on trial in Adelaide, charged with trying to obstruct justice.
Kim Richardson was the Liberal member for Kingston in 2005 when his son Jace and a friend were charged over an assault on a bouncer at the East End Exchange Hotel. According to prosecutor Jim Pearce, Richardson, a former police officer who knew how the system worked, immediately phoned a number of police, including the officer in charge of the City Watch House. He also demanded to speak to the state duty officer, telling him police were heavy-handed and precipitous in arresting his son and that he should be unarrested and released. His behaviour went further than that of a worried parent. He was throwing his weight around. Mr Pearce alleged 9 days later Richardson pretended to be a police prosecutor when he called the hotel manager Paul Casno. The prosecutor alleged Richardson suggested the hotel manager persuade the bouncer to drop the charges. Otherwise, the two young men were likely to charge the bouncer and sue the hotel as well. He alleged that call had been traced to a phone in Parliament House in Canberra, only a minute's walk from Richardson's office. Richardson's denied making the call. His trial will resume later this month. The charges against his son were never pursued.